Welcome everyone. We'll just wait for a few seconds to let the people join this event. So let's get started. So welcome all to this next event in the Interoperability in Action workshop series. Today we will be looking at the social protection systems interoperability with early warning systems. So this is me, Anita Mittal. I'm a component lead for the Digital Convergence Initiative at GIZ, based out of India. So in today's, before we start the webinar, let me share some housekeeping rules with you all. Please ask the questions in the Q&A box. And there's another box, the chat box, where you can share comments or resources. We have this webinar workshop presented in 4 languages. Simultaneous interpretation is available. Use the interpretation icon to select the language of your choice amongst English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. So this session will be recorded. So we are seeking your permission for recording the session. So today's agenda, after a short welcome by me, I will hand over to Joe for taking this workshop forward. We have first interoperability. I hear there's an echo. I don't know, Paula, if you can do anything about it. So we will have use case presentation on SP systems and early warning system, live demonstration of interoperability use cases, followed by some presentations from different solution providers, Prism, Google, OpenEWS, and we also have a country case presentation by Ravanda. After this, you will get an opportunity to ask questions and share your thoughts on this workshop before closing the webinar. Moving on, next slide. So this is the lineup of speakers for the workshop today. I will let Joe from WFP, who is the moderator for the session, introduce the speakers just before their input. So let me tell you very briefly about this initiative which is organizing this workshop. The Digital Convergence Initiative, which was launched in 2021, is housed under Universal Social Protection USP 2030 with the objective of promoting digital transformation of social protection systems. This is funded both by the German government as well as EU and implemented by 5 partners, GIZ, ILO, World Bank, Expertise France, and FIAP, along with an expanded community of other stakeholders from international organization, digital public goods, private sector, and country representatives, along with external experts. So what is our approach to achieving digital transformation and social protection? We work along 4 pillars. The first one is knowledge sharing. So we develop best practices knowledge projects as well as conduct events like one of these and other talking interoperability webinars where we showcase how countries have benefited and achieved interoperability. The second pillar is about development of consensus-based global interoperability standards, and these are available as open standards on Gitbook and GitHub, available for implementation by any country. And we also provide support to the countries in implementation of standards as well as digital transformation measures. So we are supporting 21 core countries, as well as through help desk, we support already 10 countries and open to a few more. We also have the capacity development and training arm, where we provide training to the social protection practitioners on how to implement digital transformation in their countries and interoperability too. We also have another cross-cutting AI hub, which provides guidance, standards, as well as country implementation support on implementing AI for social protection in their countries. Moving on. So just a few words on what is this Interoperability in Action workshop series. So this series was launched to demonstrate interoperability of SP systems with many other systems like CRVS, payments, ID. And in today's session, we are looking at early warning systems interacting with social protection systems. Based on this understanding, we also set up committees to draft standards, and we hear from experts and solution providers on this topic relevant for this workshop. Next slide, please. We have recordings of all the past sessions where we have conducted this interoperability in action with other systems available, and you can go and watch them as per your interest and need. So the standards that we have published are in green, which is the interface of SP system with CRVS, social registry, integrated beneficiary registry, disability and farmer registry, as well as ID systems. The employment systems are about to be published soon after ending the public review phase. And the early warning system will be kicking off soon. So if you're interested in contributing to the drafting or consensus building of the standard, please feel free to reach out. Next one in the pipeline is payment systems. With this, I invite Joe to take over the moderation and conduction of this rest of the workshop. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Anita. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I'd like to maybe first thank you all, like audience members, for lending us your attention today, because I think this topic might be of interest to various types of people from different backgrounds, including policymakers, operational people, as well as technical or data-related people and backgrounds and functions. As Anita mentioned, this is the second sort of iteration that sort of builds on the first one. This is a bit more technical in nature, so hopefully this would give you a little bit more sort of insights or details than the previous session that was hosted. I'd also like to thank all the speakers on the panel that have also contributed their time gracefully with us today, and not least the organizers that worked behind the scene to make the magic happen. There's a lot of coordination and putting together of all the elements. So my name is Joe Zarour. I work as a digital social protection advisor at the UN World Food Programme based in Rome. Within WFP, we work in a global sort of structure of headquarters, regional bureaus, as well as country offices. And we're happy to bring to you a flavor of both sort of a high level as well as a very detailed level of how this takes place. So the discussion today is basically sort of designed to stimulate a free exchange of information. This is not prescriptive at all, and this is not any one party trying to promote any specific products. So I just wanted to make sure that this is a sort of a safe space for all of us to see what worked, where, why, what didn't work, what can we learn from previous experiences. And with that in mind, maybe I'll just move on to just a quick disclaimer to say that we appreciate the fact there are many parties involved in this discussion and many products you will see. So we don't necessarily support a specific product or endorse it, or even vendor. So it's all open for interpretation and context and your understanding of what means to your context and your use case and your specific problem sort of organization and mapping towards a solution. Also to say that open source is a brilliant sort of a collective attitude towards creation of digital products that could be used, reused, tweaked, contextualized, but also be aware that there are different versions or flavors of open source as well, as you are all familiar with. There are models that would start free, but then move on. There's a business model that needs to kick in at some point. So just to be aware when anybody uses open source, for you to be aware of what the context means in terms of your overall return on investment and handover scenario after whoever is helping you sort of decides to finish the project. And thank you. So with that, maybe I'll move on to a key point. So basically, early warning systems only work if we can transform multiple streams of hazard information into clear, actionable forecasts and predictive sort of pathways, if I may call them. So this could include anything from satellite data, from rainfall, hydromet gauges, machines that have learned and have used supervised, unsupervised learning to predict or assimilate or do any modeling, as well as national agencies that are key for the activation of those principles. So from last webinar, we understood that meant basically that having thresholds, understanding probability scenarios of when and how and what the sort of accuracy or prediction level of that scenario to activate and what sort of decision logic can be involved. But even strong forecasts, right, regardless of what it is, be it machine learning or human or actualized data insights, sometimes they fail without interoperability. So we need to understand the technical standards. We need to understand the governance protocols. We need to understand the exchange of information. We need to understand who the actors are. What are the protocols of integrating and linking those data assets together and data bits, and understand that there's a responsibility on that data that comes either from public sources or from private sources on the security, on the privacy, and many other elements that protect the individuals from harm. This is an extremely important point to bring forward, I think, at this point. So we discussed toolboxes last time. Toolboxes could include, for example, for humanitarian organizations like the World Food Program, like us, could include policy frameworks, could include standard operating procedures or methodologies like a shock responsive methodology. Then we also discussed platforms and systems, so infrastructures that includes climate monitoring tools, like one of them that will be demonstrated today called PRISM, or hazard vulnerability overlay of data together. That would also include, for example, predictive modeling of tools from partners like Google and others on FloodHub. And it could include also different modeling of data pipelines and data assets that we have internally and externally. They could include Hunger Live or geospatial data or food insecurity data or market-related analysis data that we have internally or collectively with the humanitarian cluster somehow exchanged outside. But despite all these advances, systems remain siloed in some places, maybe for the right reasons. So data quality is uneven. And we understand that many of those tools need data as the currency for them to function. So it's key to understand that the systems are as good as the underlying data and the exchange of that data behind it. So that's why we're attempting to build sort of integrated, standard-based, community-owned infrastructure and standards that basically are essential for enabling these exchanges. So if I am able to move, please, to the next topic. So if we were to set sort of the overall intent, right? So why are we doing this? Why are we here, spending this time with you and taking your attention? Could it be because we are attempting to reach a unified anticipatory support environment that is grounded in hazard intelligence? And that's a question. I'm not saying that's the answer to it, just for you to park it at the moment and think about it. So if we begin with a foundational question, I would like to maybe just touch base on 4 points: the why, the what, the how, and the when. I think are important to set the scene. If I begin with the why, for example, we've seen places like Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Mozambique. Pilots there have showed that pre-crisis sort of activation of responses somehow protect food consumption, prevent asset liquidation, and reduces acute malnutrition in ways that post-crisis response, so after the fact versus before the event, cannot recover. But basically, that anticipatory action is sometimes bottlenecked by the problem of data and systems. So without knowing who is exposed, where they are, what the triggers are, and how do we intend to respond, these are sort of answers that need to take place ahead of time, because the crucial window is the last 72-hour sort of last mile of events that will be hampered if the preparatory groundwork is not in place, we believe. So it could be anything, because some people are pre-registered and others are not to enroll in a specific program, or it could be any other thing. So could the highest return be the opportunity for humanitarian agencies basically to embed forecast-triggered assistance directly into government systems at scale? These are questions that we would love to your help in trying to answer, and we hope today is an opportunity to do that. If I move to the second topic, and that'll be my last topic before I hand it over to the brilliant people that are going to be sort of discussing their views on the panel. So to address this, basically, and provide a deeper analysis of what we're talking about here, allow us for a moment to double-click a little bit and begin with, excuse me, a conceptual understanding. No, please, previous slide. So if we can begin with the conceptual demonstrations, you would see 2 use cases that will be presented that would basically focus on disaster agencies, if we call that system, and then social protection agencies that we call up another system, for example, and where and how the linkages can be done through other systems that can be early warning systems, and how these systems are structured, and how can you as a country activate and learn from that. So would it be overlaying vulnerable data on top of hazard data, on top of disaster risk management data sets that exists, or it could be something else? So moving on from that conceptual element, I'm very excited that we are bringing together today 2 key examples. My colleague would talk about Mozambique, and then my good friend would talk about the Rwanda story. So these 2 stories are very important to me, because the way I see them, basically I think of them of 2 separate methodologies of trying to achieve maybe something similar. And in my mind, I have a sort of a structured mind. I think, would that be sort of a linear approach? One of them would be a linear approach to achieving an objective. The other would be more an organic, scattered approach. So I think of, is it a k-means sort of linear approach to achieving this? This is one example. Or could it be a more a sort of a clustering, for example, analysis of achieving that objective? So there are architectural topics to be made as well, and this is why we bring in different products like Prism, Flood Hubs, and many other scenarios, the GIS products as well, and a few other pilots to discuss. Last slide, please. In addition to these, like we've told you the story, we've grounded a little bit with conceptual understanding, and then we've shown you practically how 2 countries have used these products. Then at the end, we'll come in and get the vendor's view. So we'll get Google to give us our view on where and how flood sort of management is going, and how is this basically enhancing sort of climate forecasting. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about the sort of risk level communication, community versus governments versus different entities, where one of the projects or pilots by OpenEWS will give us an example of what they did in a couple of countries. So hopefully, with this in mind, this will give us a sort of an idea of how this storyboard could come together and reach a common understanding. So this was my first intervention today. After that, I'm going to hand it over to a series of 4 different subsections, and then I'll come back to the end to try to address the open questions, by the way, to all the panelists. And then at the end, obviously try to address any question you might have and you would write in the Q&A to any of my fellow members today. So with this, I'm very excited to hand this over to Edwin, and I think Aisha as well. They will walk us through a sort of a demonstrative use case of what they have somehow conceptually developed, but also technically proven that exchange, and take it with a grain of salt or like it the way it is. This is just an example for you to see how things can be done. Then we move on to a more practical sort of implemented sort of project case and after that. So with this, Edwin, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yes, I will start first. So thank you, Joe. So next slide, please. So building on our previous country use cases and from different desk reviews we saw, we were able to define 2 simple interoperability use cases between early warning system and social protection system. And this is what we will be showcasing today. So the first use case we want to showcase is for a risk assessment exercise. In the case of a potential flood, the early warning system can actually query the social protection system to retrieve aggregated data, like the total number of poor households in a potentially affected area, to be able to estimate supports they need. The second use case that we plan to showcase today is as well when a possible drought or a flood threshold is reached in the early warning system. As part of the country anticipatory action plan, the early warning system can send a notification to the social protection system. This notification will include the affected location, and it will be able, based on the country use case, to trigger, for example, a timely cash assistance to vulnerable families. So you'll see this seamless data exchange will be able to enable a faster, a more data-driven response when it matters the most. Next slide, please. Now to look deeper into each use case. In the first use case, we will see that the early warning system supports preparedness for crisis, and it will request the aggregated data from the social protection system. For this example, when we know a flood risk is detected in a specific geographic area, and we want to assess the situation and the potential impacts and the needs, the early warning system can send a query to the social protection system to retrieve key indicators, such as the total number of households, and more importantly, the number of poor and vulnerable households in this area. It can be also distribution by gender and age group. This is not individual level data, but more of aggregated information, which ensure privacy while still enable effective planning. The social protection system will process the request and return the data, allowing the early warning system and the decision makers to quickly estimate the scale of potential impact and the resources required, such as cash support, food assistance, or evacuation planning. This kind of interoperability will enable faster evidence-based decision-making before the disaster actually happens. Now I'll hand over to Edwin to showcase this scenario using OpenSPP and QGIS.
Yeah, good. Hello, let me just share my screen. I'll be demonstrating. Okay, wait, this one. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to demonstrate how OpenSPP, our open source social protection system, to integrate with QGIS to connect early warning data with social protection programs. So QGIS is a free open source geographic information system used worldwide for spatial analysis. OpenSPP is a digital public good that provides social registries and program management for social protection. So here we built a QGIS plugin that connects the two. So the plugin uses OAuth authentication. So OpenSPP serves its layers via the standard OGC API features protocol, not a proprietary format. So let me open my map. So this is the Philippines. I have QGIS open with a project for the northern Luzon island of the Philippines. This is a region regularly hit by typhoons. Okay, so you will notice here the WFS OGC API using the plugin that we created for QGIS. So it provides beneficiary density distribution, coverage rankings. All of these are GeoJSON, which means we can run spatial computations on them. So as an example, let me open this up. Okay, so it provides the distribution of beneficiaries in different areas in the Luzon island of the Philippines. Okay, so you can already see where social protection programs are concentrated, and just as importantly, where coverage is thin. Okay, that context will matter in a moment. So next is this one is, okay, let me just zoom this a bit so you can see better. This is a satellite-derived flood extent from Typhoon Vamco in the year 2020. So the raw data has many scattered polygons, as you can see. So I'll buffer it by approximately 1 kilometer to create a cohesive impact zone. Okay. So 1 kilometer is 0.01. I'm sorry. Okay, so this one. So in a matter of seconds, we now have a single clean impact zone we can work with. So I'm going to select this zone, the buffered zone. Okay, there. Okay, and then I'm going to so I'm going to select this flood zone, and then I'm going to query OpenSPP. So remember that I mentioned that we have a plugin installed here in QGIS, the OpenSPP plugin for QGIS. So I can simply click this button to query statistics. So data, and that's it. Data comes from OpenSPP. And from here, we can now take a look at the data that was queried from OpenSPP. So total households of 136 and 530 members are affected by this flooding as a result of the typhoon. From here, I can disaggregate this by, let's say, gender and age group. As you can see, the breakdown is presented here. So the data are, again, queried from OpenSPP via the QGIS plugin. Okay, so this data can now be utilized for the preparation of programs. We'll be presenting that in the next part. So basically, the plugin provides for not only this feature, but also to provide queries to execute spatial queries using spatial statistics and proximity statistics. Okay, so this is QGIS, and the OpenSPP plugin that addresses the requirement as presented. So thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Next slide, please. So now building on the previous use case, what you will see in the next demo, this scenario focus on triggering response. So in the case of the flood situation that we saw, the early warning system can continuously monitor indicators such as rainfall, river level, or vegetation indexes. Once a predefined threshold is reached, an alert is generated with the affected locations and severity level. Today, this integration is implemented through an API, where the early warning systems notify the social protection system to initiate support. This can also be extended later on to a more push-based model, where alerts are automatically sent in real time without the need of a manual trigger. As a result, the social protection system can immediately take action such as scaling up cash transfer to affected household, ensuring faster and more efficient response. Now I will hand back to Edwin to show us a real use case between PRISM and OpenSPP, where OpenSPP will receive the alert from PRISM to take action before the flood happens. Over to you, Edwin.
Thank you. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Okay, there. Can you see my screen? Okay. So for this demonstration, I'll be presenting the integration of OpenSPP with PRISM. So it's nice that we have a presentation from PRISM in this webinar, so we'll learn more about it. So my part is purely for presenting the AWS OpenSPP integration with the PRISM dashboard as the platform. Okay, so PRISM is the platform for real-time impact and situation monitoring. It is an open source climate risk monitoring platform developed by the World Food Program. It integrates climate hazard data with vulnerability information through a web-based dashboard. And what we did is we've integrated it directly with OpenSPP. Okay. So some of the features I'll show you next are not yet in the final product, but I want to give you a preview of where this is heading. Okay, so given the AWS, so let me just focus on flooding for now. Okay, so PRISM integrates with Google's flood forecasting. So let me open this up. Flood inundation prediction map here. By the way, the zones that we plotted a while ago in QGIS can also be retrieved here. Wasn't able to present that earlier. Okay, so these polygons show predicted flooding severity by municipality from the alert received by OpenSPP. Okay, so this is these are areas in the southern part of the Philippines. So, but simply by clicking a polygon, you will automatically be able to see the details. So the data presented here are from OpenSPP. So this demonstrate the integration. Okay, so one click and PRISM automatically queries OpenSPP in real time. So this is one area. let me use this one. This is what we call in the Philippines, this is a municipality known as Ocampo. So we have 13 households here and 44 members. Okay, so aggregate statistics are shared. As you can see, no personal data leaves OpenSPP. Okay, now I am going to save this zone. Save as targeting zone. And name this, okay, for the purpose of our, so we are aligned with the area. So this is Ocampo. Let me just put a number because I've been trying to test this a while ago. So I cannot duplicate any name. Okay, save this. So what happens is that this now goes to OpenSPP as a geofence data. So Ocampo 9, which I saved a while ago, is now a geofence data in OpenSPP. So let's take a look. Let's follow this one. So from this zone with the households and members, we switch now to OpenSPP. And let's take a look at the geofence data we created in Prism. And we have this now, the Ocampo 9. Okay. So when we open, it also present here the map of Ocampo 9, this area here, the same as what we selected a while ago. Okay. Now I am going to show you how to create an anticipatory cash transfer program targeted directly at the households inside this flood zone. Okay. So I'm going to switch now to programs. I'm going to create a new program and name this, let's say, just to be consistent with the names, let me call this Ocampo Cash Program. And the benefit type is cash. I'll be targeting, let's say, individuals for now. Group are the households, of course. It's in US dollars. And I want to import the beneficiaries immediately upon creation of this program. Next. For the eligibility criteria, you can actually use any eligibility criteria available here, but for now, let's just use all registrants. For the geographic scope, this is where we're going to use the geofence data, the one we created in Prism, Ocampo 9. For the entitlements, let's just say that I'm going to provide a fixed amount of $45 per beneficiary, okay? And that's it. I'm going to create a program. Once the program is created, automatically the 58 beneficiaries that were identified in the zone that we selected in Prism are automatically added here as part of this program. And from here, we can now create a new cycle and prepare the entitlements. And then we have here the total amount that will be distributed to the beneficiaries. Okay. So it can now, so this entitlements can now be sent for validation. So this requires a validation process and transferred to citizens through mobile money or other ways. So people can receive it before the flood occurs and prepare for it. So to bring this together, when what you've seen is interoperability in practice. These systems talk to each other through standards API and protocols. So OAuth, OGC API, GeoJSON, and the upcoming DCI standard. So that's not a technical detail. It means any country, any platform built on these standards can connect to OpenSPP in the same way. So the result is better analysis, faster reporting, and cash transfers that reach the right people at the right time before disaster strikes. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. So like Edwin just showed us that interoperability means that you can connect a system to another system, and at any time you move from one system to another, if you're following the same standards, the changes are going to be very minimal. This is why we want to push people and we want to promote to have standards in implementation of softwares. So the first API used in our first use case allows the social protection system to expose aggregated data through a standardized API. This means the early warning system is sending a request with parameters such as the geographical area that is affected by the crisis and other optional filters that is needed for the assessment, for example, the poverty status, an age group, or a gender. Then the social protection system will be able to return those aggregated indicators, such as the total number of households, the number of vulnerable households in the area, and those can be further disaggregated as shown by Edwin now, enabling more precise planning. By sharing this data in advance, we can estimate potential impact, forecast support needs, and plan funding before a disaster occurs. This anticipatory approach helps ensure that vulnerable populations are identified early, and it reduces risk and prevents escalation of harm when a flood or any other hazard hits. Next slide, please. In the second use case, we saw that the data flows goes in the opposite direction, where the early warning system sends a structured notification to the social protection system. This payload can include more than what we showed now. It can include as well the hazard type, for example, a flood or a drought, the affected geographical area, the severity level, the expected timing of when the disaster is likely to occur, and this helps move from a reactive to more anticipatory action. This integration can be implemented through API, where the early warning system pushes the payload to the social protection system, and it can as well be extended to be a fully event-driven or push-based module for real alert. Once received, then the social protection system can automatically process this payload and map those affected area against the registry of beneficiaries, and this will help us enable a more informed and a timely decision-making, such as triggering cash, as we show now, or scaling up an existing support program before the disaster happens. And this will ensure a faster, coordinated, and proactive assistance to vulnerable population. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Aisha and Edwin, for this very insightful sort of demonstration. Basically, we have, I think Aisha has summed it up and Edwin has showed us, technologically speaking, how integration can take place between social protection system and climate monitoring and hazard systems. You might feel that some of these scenarios can be at a preparedness stage or at a response stage, depending on how and what this means to you in your scenario. Obviously, just a little bit of a word of caution that once we talk conceptually of these technology exchanging information, there are other layers that need to be considered all the way from a policy, institutional, data sharing, and all the architecture of a value chain of a social protection have to be taken in place in a sort of a shock responsive scenario where there's a pre-establishment of everything from financing to exchange to activation to pre-vetting, for example, of eligible scenarios, as well as pre-vetted vulnerable people and many other considerations. So for you to sort of reflect on how this applies to your scenario. With this in mind, we're going to see now how this has been sort of implemented in a scenario in Mozambique, for example. It's an actual implementation of a product called PRISM by WFP. I'm very honored to have my colleague Gabriela Nobre that's going to walk us through what exactly the product is, what PRISM does, what are the features, and how this maps to setting up the early warning system and the anticipatory action steps that we talked about and discussed. So first, we show you a little bit about how the technology can exchange information, conceptually speaking. Now we're going to show you a little bit more in depth on how the product maps to the policy, operating procedures, and the architecture of that exchange. With that, I'm happy to hand it over to you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'll be talking a little bit about PRISM, but I also would like to be talking today about flooding anticipatory action. So it's so to start with, I'm a risk specialist with the WFP Geospatial Unit at the headquarters. And I've been supporting countries to develop anticipatory action trigger systems for a couple of years now. And our experience range from a diverse range of hazards, including droughts, floods, cyclones. Mozambique is a country that we have been longer supporting. So today I wanted to show you a little bit of how the flooding system is looking like Mozambique. But to start with, let me take you through a bit through some key features of PRISM that you have been seen by Edwin. It was a great introduction to my presentation. So here I'm showing to you PRISM Mozambique that has been deployed at the Meteorological Service Department called INAM in the country. You see here the logo of the institution. PRISM has some key features. The first one that you can see here on my screen is basically the visualization, the access to data. And within PRISM, the basic version, you have access to more than 40 different layers, climate risk layers that you can use for real-time assessments of situations. You have access to global layers, but as well as local layers, depending on which data is available in country. You have also access to different types of variable, ranging from rainfall, temperature, vegetation conditions, extracted from global to local products. Here, for instance, you see an indicator that represents rainfall anomalies. That's one that has been most recent, showing you the 1 month rainfall anomaly in Mozambique. The areas in blue are wet, the areas in orange drier than usual. You can change the visualization to show you how this has been in the past days, on the past 6 months, 3 months, and so on. You can also change the indicators. So the first feature is the access to visually to the climate information. Then I want to take you to another feature, which is the charts overview. With the charts overview, you can basically have an understanding for specific risk layers on trends over time. So this helps you to understand how the situation is standing in comparison to the long-term trend over many years. You can compare regions, you can compare periods, you can change different variables. Then you also have access to an analysis feature, which gives you some on-the-fly statistics of the conditions average across a admin boundary of interest. That could be district level, that could be a province level, that could be a country level. And there are some statistics that it's built in with PRISM that you can extract and get information as you tailor your layers. And then the most recent one are the anticipatory action dashboards, which in Mozambique, it's available for the 3 hazards that is currently anticipatory action being implemented: the droughts, storms, tropical storms, and floods. Here you see the one from flooding, which has been very much used this season as it has been a very wet season for Mozambique. So I will take you through a little bit on the process that we follow when setting up these anticipatory action trigger systems, which is actually my specialty within the organization. Then I wanna, of course, take you through now my presentation. I hope you can see now my screen. I just want to as well mention another feature of Prism, which is the alerting system, in which alerts can be customized and users get notified when a threshold and trigger is exceeded. And also the feature of the API integration, which the colleague has demonstrated, which basically pulls information from different digital tools that enables access to global to local data. So just giving you here an example. To some of the products that you can get access via Prism. You can have access to global layers such as the CHIRPS dataset, the rainfall, also satellite data from NASA, which is very good to have because data sets is usually very heavy to process, but it's good to have this available as visualization platform. You also have access to forecasting data, such as a colleague was showing the one from Flood Hub, but also from different centers such as SMWF, seasonal to sub-seasonal forecast, GLOFAS for the river floods, and also Google Flood Hub. But also you can have access to local observations that it's retrieved via, for instance, Kobo Toolbox or Hydromet stations. This is powered by, of course, a engineering structure that it's infrastructure that it's available within our unit, that is the Humanitarian Data Cube, which pre-process all these data stores and some processing pipeline is applied. So that's how you get the visualization on Prism. And I wanted to take you through a little bit this feature of Prism of visualizing the flooding module. But I need to make a disclaimer and say that Prism, it's basically the visualization platform. It's a platform that helps us to monitor the forecasting that it receives daily. But the analytics behind a trigger system for anticipatory action is done parallel to that. So we're basically informing Prism with the exactly triggers and thresholds, and the forecast is monitored to see if these triggers and thresholds are exceeded. Then the alarm starts and all the process embedded to that. But to give you a little bit of background on how we design these systems, okay? So we basically follow 4 steps. I'll take you through in a bit more details, but here's just a rough overview. First, and the most important, is the gathering of data, local data, and a source of forecasting. Anticipatory action programs, we always talking about within WFP. So far, it has been always forward-looking. So we use forecasting information to anticipate a shock. So it's the main enabler of anticipatory action. It's the forecast information. So we start gathering the data, the local data, and the forecasting source. Then we go to the step 2, which is then the evaluation of the forecasting in predicting past flooding events and determining the statistical reliability of this forecasting at different times. Then once we do this analysis and we find reliable usage of the forecast that we can link with triggers and thresholds, then we move into the pipeline configurations in which we make the processing of the forecasting. We set up the visualization platform as you see on Prism. We configure the alert with the end users and the setup of the dashboard. And then finally comes into the more operational activities, which is then monitoring the triggers via the dashboard, disseminating the alerts if the triggers are exceeded, and communicating these with stakeholders. So taking you through in details, the first step is gathering data. This is the most critical. And of course, when you're designing an anticipatory action system, you want this to be locally relevant. You want the system to be capturing well floods that are expected to happen on the ground. So that's not based on just a hydrological model, which may or may not be really connected to flooding experience on the ground. So our first step is always to gather the local data. That's always what we prefer in order to understand the threshold. So understanding what are the flood events that are in your historical series that you would have liked to be forecasted if you would have the system in place before this flooding happens. So in Mozambique, we try to set up these systems for these locations that you see marked on the map. These are 10 different river gorge stations. And we used as a source of forecasting the GLOFAS forecasting. And basically what we do, the GLOFAS is a symbol forecast. So it's basically a probabilistic forecast. So we are trying to assess whether this probabilistic forecast at different probability levels have been able to forecast past flood events. One step that is absolutely important is defining the floods. So when did a flood happen on the past? And you need to define that on both of data sets, the local one and the forecasting, the flood forecasting, in which you want them to be hopefully able to predict these local level floods. But there are different ways in which, so in this process, when setting up the system using thresholds that are locally relevant, there are different strategies that you can take. You can use the local knowledge to tell you at this specific level the flood happens. You can derive such floods from statistically based on return periods, or you can also use past impactful events data set if that's available. In our setup, we use a mix of local knowledge and statistical return periods for the different levels of floods. And the performance of the forecast is measured for different lead times. We want to be able to bring this information ahead of time with sufficient lead time, but also skew. And is evaluated at every single station that we wanted to develop anticipatory action trigger system at every single lead time and across different thresholds from floods that they range from mild to more severe impacts. This is one important step because it ensures that when you are alerting about a flooding, you're alerting about a flood that is locally relevant, that has been validated and calibrated against local observations. When we're setting up the operational monitoring pipeline, basically what we do is that for the places in which we find skillful forecasts, we have triggers and the thresholds that we keep on monitoring. We receive the GLOFAS forecasting daily, and the processing pipelines is basically telling us for these different locations what is the probability of a flooding of different magnitude. So this is on a way linked to the trigger that is pre-assigned to the different locations, and then when this trigger is exceeded, an alert is released. So here is when we get into the monitoring step with the resource of dashboard, like you see here. Here was a screenshot of the dashboard taken a few days ago. You see different colors indicating that the trigger for different thresholds has been reached for different locations. In red, you see where there is an active alert for severe flooding happening within the next 2 to 5 days. In yellow, you see where the bank full level has been exceeded, and in green, where there is no alert. If you're curious, you can also click on a specific gauge station and you can inspect data specifically for the location of interest. You can examine the probability within the next 3 to 5 days. You can also look at hydrographics to see how the forecast is expected to behave over time. Then when these alerts are released via a mailing list, the users receive an email that says that for a specific location, this threshold has been exceeded. And what it's done in practice is this alert is reaching the technical working group, and that they sit together with the government and they decide whether anticipatory action should be activated or not. But the decision on whether the anticipatory action is going to start is purely is a governmental mandate. But once there is a decision to implement anticipatory action, all set of activities already predefined, the fund is released automatic. The target areas are already identified, the funding that is needed, and so on. So that's how it works in practice in Mozambique. I'm also screenshotting here how the alert works for storms. So a use case of interoperability of social protection and climate risk, well, the colleague already demonstrated, but within the social protection information systems, you do bring this layer of the beneficiary information, while a climate risk information system like PRISM is able to retrieve real-time current hazards monitoring situations, different hazards, but also is able to look historically at these events so that these two systems, they can live together within an area to identify the time frame, the hazards to a certain number of households that is exposed, and some sort of adaptation of the beneficiary list can happen. My colleague has put together for me this example on how this can perhaps integrate well from the social protection system. For instance, you can bring into PRISM or some sort of beneficiary layers, identifying areas with high or low coverage of vulnerable people based on some registration statistics or some poverty layer. PRISM has already this feature of bringing the climate information, so you can display, for instance, areas in which you have high or low exposure to droughts. These can be, well, real-time monitored, or these can also be forward-looking if you're using a forecasting. And then you can derive something such as an expansion analysis, where you can identify areas in which the social protection program could benefit from a vertical expansion, such as the area in blue, that you have high exposure to droughts and a high beneficiary coverage, or you can identify the areas in which you can see a horizontal expansion, such as the one in pink, where there is high drought exposure but low beneficiary coverage. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to bring to you today. I hope you find it insightful on this real application on how flooding anticipatory action has been working in Mozambique. It's the first time we're piloting the program in Mozambique, and just came on a very good time because it has been a very wet season in Mozambique, and the system is now being piloted for the first time. So we are drawing a lot of lessons from this experience. So thank you so much for your attention, and I hand over to Joey.
Thank you so much, Gabriela, for this very rich discussion and showcase of the product. So everybody, I think we've sort of taken you from Luzon to Maputo and basically shown you a few examples along the way that might be food for thought. Definitely the use cases that were presented by Edwin and Aisha were significant in terms of like a post-event or targeting, or even different scenarios. Gabriela showed us a few sort of scenarios. I think it's important to maybe two things stood out from Gabriela to me is that context is super important. Defining the right problem, finding the right use case, then mapping the solution for that use case is important. We're showing you very different solutions, and at the end you will figure out which one is best for you. So that mapping is important. We've mentioned also the distinction between deterministic and probabilistic sort of notion of value and data, and also how we move from sort of data to pre-processing, data to analysis, to insight, to adoption of early action. There are many steps along with the way that would be sort of somehow enabled in any system, be it any social protection system or any climate hazard system, not specifically any one that was mentioned here. With this note, I'm super excited to take you all through my good friend Athanase to Kigali, where Athanase is the Chief Digital Officer at the disaster management agency called Minima, as well as probably he wears different hats as well with other agencies. So with this, I'm very excited for Athanase to share with us the sort of Rwandan learnings, experiences, architecture, bit of data, as well as any learnings along the way. Thank you. Over to you, Athanase.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe and colleagues. So my name is Athanase. I'm the Chief Digital Officer in the Ministry in charge of emergency management, but at the same time in the Ministry of Environment. So I am here today to share with you the early warning information system, which is an integrated system that we created. This was initiated actually back in 2023. So yes, I'll be talking mainly about all the pillars of early warning system, sorry, and how on each pillar we just try to integrate with corresponding systems, especially weather forecast systems, but also recently we also brought AI into the early warning information system, whereby we also integrated with Google Flood Hub. So I will be trying to actually take you through the best practices on integration, especially on this early warning information system. Next. Yeah. As I told you, I will be talking pillar by pillar. We have 4 pillars. So disaster risk knowledge, we have to make sure that at least the vulnerabilities are well known by the communities, but also they need to know the patterns and trends in those factors or the risks. But also we need to know if the risk and those data are available and those risk mapped. In the second pillar, we just the observation, detection, observation, analysis, and forecasting. So we need to know yes, if the right parameters are being monitored, if there is a scientific basis, for those forecasts, but also accurate and timely warnings can be generated based on the observed data, or what the models have just predicted once we have run the models. And the other pillar, warning and dissemination and communication. This is a critical pillar where if once you have the you have calculated the risk, now you need to communicate, to disseminate the warnings. Then you have to make sure that the warnings reach the community, and if the message is very clear to the community, but also make sure that the risk is also understood, because people can underestimate the risk and then can just face serious impact. So the last pillar is the preparedness and response capabilities. Yeah, we have to make sure that we have the response plans in place. We have to make sure that we have people or capacities to provide the response. If the people are prepared enough and ready to react to those warnings, but also the risks. So yes, go on, please. Next. So in Rwanda, we have now started. Yes, I said that we have started this early warning information system back in 2023, but we wanted to make it a multi-hazard early warning system. In the Rwandan context, we have actually those hazards. We have the flood, we have the landslides, strong winds, thunderstorm, droughts, earthquake, volcanic eruption, fires. CBRNE stands for chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive hazards, but also human hazards, crop and animal epidemics. Those are the risks that we commonly have in Rwanda. For example, we don't have tsunami. So tsunami, for example, will not be part of our early warning information system. Next. Yes, our system is built on S3 products. My colleague who just did the presentation before me talked about Quantum GIS, QGIS, which is open source. But for us, we are still using those commercial GIS products like ArcGIS. So the system is built on top of ArcGIS. So we have the first part, the ArcGIS developer desktop. Sorry. So that's part is used by people, mainly staff, to handle some tasks like the management of users, the creation or the published data or web tools and maps, but also the management of data, but also some tools for geospatial analysis. Yeah, another another component is ArcGIS Enterprise, which is focusing on web and mobile applications. We also produce web applications as well as mobile applications. We have also in this category, we have, for example, we can provide some surveys. We can produce some surveys. Can do some workforce field maps, produce field maps, and so on and so forth. So, but also we, in this component, we just also do the risk mapping. We can do the monitoring. Those are the key features, the dissemination and communications, and then the response, provision. So our system is able to, do those functions, as I said. But also we have then the application server, the ArcGIS Web Adapter, a portal for ArcGIS Server, Postgres, the management of the database. It is all done into the system. So before leaving this slide, I just want to highlight that even though we are trying to establish an early warning information system which is multi-hazard, we have started so far with the two hazards, which are landslide and storms. Now we are adding another hazard, flood. We just try to integrate with Google Flood. So it is something that we are starting, but we are now moving, firm and steady. Next. Yes, the current system is just covering those two, landslide and storms. Yeah, in the storms we have four subcategories: the windstorm, hailstorm, thunderstorm, and rainstorm. Yes, we are trying to use to use the models, different models. There are the models suggested in the SOPs for landslide and storms, but we got some others of models from our stakeholders like Rwanda Space Agency, Rwanda Meteorological Agency. We are using multiple models to see the best model that can produce the best results. So because whenever you are dealing with a huge amount of data, you need to use of course, not only one model, but more than one model to make sure that you judge the outcome of the models and then consider the one which is giving the best outcome. Next. In this pillar, we have a lot of lot of data, risk knowledge. When I talked about those pillars, I talked about you need to know first of all, the hazards. So we have now just collected or mapped all the hotspots. For example, landslide hotspots are all mapped. Yes, this is what you see in this dashboard. In that map, those are those red dots. Those are the landslide hotspots. As you see, we have covered some districts like Ngororero, Rutsiro, Karongi, Rusizi, and Nyanza. But also you can see the flood hotspots. Yeah, Musanze, Burera, those districts. Can you bring back the presentation, please? I don't see any more of my presentation. If you can just bring it back. Joe, can you hear me? I don't see my
We
presentation.
can hear you, Atanas. I think I just messaged the moderator to see what happened to the slides. Maybe you'd want to continue your talk on your local slides until we get this figured out. I think Aisha, if you're here, maybe you can help us with the moderation of Athanas's slides. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay,
just a minute.
so I was talking about those hotspots. We have mapped them in the early warning information system, but the system has the tool to collect hazard hotspots, including spatial information in polygons. That's why I showed you the map with those locations, hotspots. They are dynamically updated and integrated into the dashboards, which is being developed under the VCRP project. So there is a standard dashboard user manual for senior managers. Our management is also having, dashboards and the user manual for all the dashboards to make sure that they understand and they make use of the system itself. Let me see if yes. Okay. Yes, please go on. I'm still waiting. So, in the risk knowledge pillar, again, there is much information that we got from we are integrating with the DESI Inventor. I don't know if anyone here know, but most of us know that DESI Inventor system, which was a standalone system used to, especially to capture disaster data impact. Yes, go on. Go on. Go on. Why, yes, one more time. Yes. Thank you. No. Get back, go back. All right. In risk knowledge, I was talking about also the integration we made with the DESI Inventor, because before early warning information system was developed, we were using DESI Inventor to record the disaster impact. Record those data, and then we have migrated those data, and then we are no longer using the DESI Inventor because now it is fully integrated with the early warning information system. So we get those information, and then we also produce dashboards. But also we have also another tool that is called ODK, Open Data Toolkit, which is used to collect data. It is a common tool, and then because it is having many projects, and then we depending on the nature of the project, those related to disaster management are also consumed through the early warning information system through the integration. Yeah, we have, of course, done an API, which is actually helping us getting those data from ODK system or data collection system. Next. I'm still on the risk. Those are the the figures, some important figures from 2013. That's when we started, doing the collection of data, especially disaster impact data. Up to now, those are the numbers that we have. The death is 2.2K, for people who are just dead, who are dead, injured people, house damaged, house destroyed, damaged crops in hectares, damaged forest in hectares, lost cattle, lost, livestock, destroyed classroom, roads, destroyed health centers or hospitals, water supplies that have been damaged, factories, and churches. Yeah, the total number of the disaster incident is 15,279 in total. So this is huge, and since 2013, when we started collecting those data, that's what we have already. But it is growing exponentially, and now, as I said, the disaster impact data is now available in early warning information system. So those information is also consumed by the social protection system in Rwanda. But the way we get we share them with them is not seamless. We are planning to have an integration, but because we also need their data, we are also planning to have a two-way integration with social protection system. Next. Yeah, the risk knowledge, we also have a data bank of images and of the events that are reported from the field volunteers, and then they are used in analysis and decision making. Those data are organized by year, month, and by district, and the access is actually given to staff at Minema and some stakeholders. Next. So the monitoring, this is the pillar number 2. In monitoring, I have highlighted that early warning information system is actually integrated with many external systems like the weather information system, meteorology information system, or from Meteo Rwanda agency, but also Rwanda Water Board, especially on this recently established feature, the Google Flood Hub. We used, of course, global data from Google, but now we are also injecting data from Rwanda Water Board, especially the water permit information system. But we are also integrating the Rwanda Space Agency. We are getting spatial data from there, but also some models, as I said, they are now feeding the landslide and storm models within early warning information system. So we are having the technical staff that are maintaining the system and the work also on data side. I also mentioned that we are now injecting the artificial intelligence, in data analysis, but also, the model and machine learning to make sure that we produce the best outcome out of the models. Yeah, next, please. Then coming back to the integration with Google Flood Hub integration. Yes, we have had a chance to work with WFP. WFP is the one that gave us an idea of how we can leverage the data from the Google. So we have then had a partnership with Google, and then from that partnership, we got an API that helped us to get access to those global data. And of course, we have had many, we have seen that there is already many virtual stations in Rwanda. Those are the ones that we are using in this project. Yes, we also need we needed as well to integrate with Rwanda Water Board to have, to use the localized model. That's what we are trying to do, where you can see some of the dashboards. You can see, for example, that map of Rwanda with those virtual stations. Yes. The model is giving us riverine flood forecasts and, of course, the impact analysis in Rwanda. That's why you see, for example, the population at risk, the house at risk, the school at risk, health facility or hospital at risk, but also other infrastructures such as roads, markets, or other infrastructures, schools, all those. So currently, we have already done this integration with the help of Esri Rwanda, because we are now building it on top of the early warning information system, which was built by Esri. On Esri products, of course, GIS. So that's why Esri was participating in the development and in the actual implementation of this integration. And we are very grateful to Google team that provided technical support, and of course WFP, including Joe. Joe, thank you so much for your technical support on this. Yes, but we are of course having many other the very other tech tasks to do on this. Maybe that's why I'd like to ask if you can go ahead and show the next slide. That's we want to automate the data pipeline, to have the end-to-end workflow for continuous data ingestions, and validation. We need also to validate this model, the model with the model we are using. And of course, we need to do the review of the features, we need to do the systematic evaluation of hydrological and catchment features for optimal model performance. Yes, those are the planned activities that are remaining. But for example, this one automation of data pipeline is ongoing. We are now trying to automate those data. Yes. So the communication is a very important pillar. Nowadays, the system has a module for notification. So the notifications, I remember in the first webinar, I talked about it. The SMS or go to the local leaders, and then the local leaders can now warn the population. This is how we do. I will show you in a screenshot in the system how we do it. But now, for example, upon the release of weather forecasts, we can now issue those bulk SMS to the to the population in prone area. So we now do it free of charge through the framework that was created across the sectors. Yeah, the mobile operators and RURA is RURA is actually the regulator. So they allowed us to use the mobile operators free of charge to disseminate those informations. This is happening whenever there is, a weather forecast, for example, and then when we have also done that calculation, risk calculation in Ali One information system, and then we are very confident that this will trigger a disaster, then we can ahead of time disseminate those notification. There is a recent move that we did. Where recently last week we have established. Go back, please. Yeah, we have last week launched the Emergency Telecommunication Cluster. It is called National Emergency ICT Cluster. This was born because of the plan that the National Emergency Telecommunication Plan, which has been validated last year. So it is also going to help us to establish technologies such as, say, broadcasts, but also, the CAP. I don't know if you know the CAP, Common Alert Protocol, that will also support in disseminate information or warnings to local population. Next. Yes, next. That's a short, screenshot that I took from the system showing the list of leaders that get the notifications, and then they can now, after getting them, they can now warn the local population. Next. Yeah, the collaboration, this is the last, anticipatory action, response, and risk knowledge. So we are training people to use the system and the features of the system. We are training not only local population or volunteers or first responders team, but also senior managers to use the system, especially the dashboards, because they are at the decision-making level. So they have to understand data on the dashboards. And then we are continuing to do the improvements of the risk assessment tools in collaboration with the Surveillance and Preparedness Directorate, but also train our technical teams. We did even some trainings on AI last time, and then we are the teams are becoming more confident, especially on the models and how they can just do the analysis out of the data provided by the models. As I said, we are having also a project to do the integration with social registry. We have received a delegation from GIZ, but we had also a discussion in WFP on how this can be implemented, and of course the Ministry of Local Government. So what we need is not a one-way integration, because maybe we could get data from social registry to make sure that we do the response, we provide the response to the population in the, in prone areas, but also the social registry could also get the data from our early warning information system to the social protection system. So I think that is it. I don't know if there is another. Yeah. Thank you so much. I believe that maybe you can also learn from your case studies, the use cases that have been shared previously, and if maybe anyone needs to compliment me, Joe can compliment. Jocelyn can compliment. I have seen also someone from Google, if she's still there, she can also compliment. Thank you very much.
Dear Athanas, thank you so much for your contribution. I think this was both heartwarming and so like scene setting, in the sense that if I notice the questions in the chat, I've seen, Hatem, Mustafa, Jocelyn, people asking about data exchange and protocols. Everything is beautiful, right? We're going to talk about all these details and different methodologies of alert and access to systems and what type of data to share. But I think in my mind, there's a key slide that Athanas talked about. Those 4 pillars, I think, are super important for technologists, policymakers, and everybody else to sort of learn about the risk classification and the impact of what that means to you as an agency in a country, not to come with a prescriptive model, but to build it bottom up. I also saw that another striking element of exchange of ingestion and as well as exchange of data between water agencies, space agencies, social protection agencies, telecom agencies. We've seen the value of that exchange, and that would lead into the questions in the chat. So with this in mind, again, thank you, Athanas, for this valuable insights and sharing all these details. We've taken you from conceptual to country case to product, and then to a real experiential learning with Rwanda. Next, I would like to introduce David. David is from Chatterbox. David will talk to us about a solution, an innovative product that they have that would probably address some of the questions in the chat or elsewhere related to the protocol of exchange and exchange of information. And after that, we'll come back to an open discussion with the panelists, and then wrap up with try to address some of the questions that everybody else answered. Thank you so much. Over to you, David. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's David. I'm the CEO of Chatterbox Solutions. Today, I'm just going to introduce you to basically our 2 core products, which are Somleng and OpenEWS. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about our company first. So we have 2 main products, as I said before, Somleng and OpenEWS. Somleng is the alerting layer. So we basically concentrate only on pillar 4, which is the dissemination part of early warning systems. And we have 2 products for that. Somleng is the alerting layer, so that fits into the telco ecosystem. So it's a product for telcos, and OpenEWS is a product for alerting authorities. So we have 2 separate products for 2 separate entities that talk to each other. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a little bit about our philosophy as a company. We try to follow the Unix philosophy, which is basically to focus on one thing and do it well. So to give you an example, for example, in Linux, there's an application that just lists files. It's called ls, and you just type ls and it just lists files. That's all it does. But it lists files like really well. Like it can list files and show the size in human format. It can list them in reverse order. It can list them in alphabetical order, but it only lists files. That's the crux of it. And then, for example, if you want to search in those listed files, then you use another application called grep. for example, and that only does text search. So we apply this concept at Chatterbox as well. We basically do one thing and we just do it really well. And that's the concept here with our two separate products here, OpenAWS and Somlane. Next slide, please. So just going to go into a little bit of a deep dive into OpenAWS. So this again is our product for alerting authorities. Again, we focus because as you've seen during this webinar, early warning systems have like many different facets, but we focus solely on dissemination. So the first thing is built for, this product is built for alerting authorities. For example, it's being used in Cambodia to power the National Early Warning System 1294. It fits, some of the features are alert management, geographical and demographic targeting, and then multi-channels. So this is really where the core comes in: SMS, IVR, and cell broadcast. We use different channels depending on the context. For example, in Cambodia, the government tends to use IVR channel, which means that they send voice alerts out to beneficiaries in the case of a disaster. In other contexts, for example, in Laos, they use both SMS and IVR. And then, for example, in Nepal, we're doing a pilot with cell broadcast. Next slide, please. So both of our products, both OpenAWS and Somlane, are API first. So this is kind of going back to the previous topic that I talked about before, just doing one thing and doing it well. So the idea is that anyone who has another part of the early warning system stack, which is forecasting or prediction models, can integrate with OpenAWS through the API. So everything you can do plus more is available through the API. So that's why we call it API first. And the second point is Excel friendly. I think this is an important point. This is from the dashboard point of view. So we know that our users, especially of OpenAWS, are alerting authorities, and most of the time they're non-technical people, but most people in the world, or most people who can use a computer in the world, know how to use Excel. So we think this is very important for manual workflows, for example, importing beneficiaries, exporting data. This is a core functionality of our dashboard. So these two things enable interoperability for the API, and also basically adapts to the skills of our users. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you an example here. So in Cambodia, we recently
Sorry, David, I think we lost the slides, Aisha. Just let you know, David. Thanks.
I can see the slides on my side.
Yeah, they are visible as well for me.
Yeah. I'll just keep going because I can see the slides. So on this IDPOR integration, we basically integrated with the IDPOR registry. So this added about 800,000 beneficiaries to the system. And I'll just talk a little bit about how we did this integration. The idea is that here is we keep the two systems separate, and the technical term for this is low coupling. And so the OpenAWS system knows nothing about the IDPOR system, and the IDPOR system knows nothing about the OpenAWS system. But there is an application in between, which was outsourced to another company who built it. But basically, this system just consumes one API, consumes both APIs, basically. So it's reading from the IDPOR database and writing to the OpenAWS database. And so via the APIs. And so with this design, we don't have any coupling with these kind of external systems, which means that basically we can focus more just on our product and build a great product basically that focuses on our use cases. And so the key to be able to do this is making the API fully featured and standards approach. So we use JSON API standard, which is basically a structure for creating JSON APIs, which it's kind of internationally recognized. But the main point is that because if you follow this standard when you build the API, then there's a lot of plugins that are available out of the box in different programming languages. So anyone who's consuming your API doesn't have to build a client from scratch. So that's one of the main reasons. The other reason, of course, is that you don't have to design the API structure yourself. You just follow the standard. And so by doing this, it created basically an easy way for another third party to integrate the two APIs together. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more about our global implementation. So in Cambodia, we're powering the National Early Warning System, which is called 1294. In Laos, we're already powering 3 provinces in the south, but now this is scaling out to be nationwide. And the next step in Laos is to add some broadcast technology, which is a new technology for dissemination. In Myanmar, we're doing a pilot which will work over IVR and SMS. In Nepal, scaling the RAIN project to include IVR. In Pakistan, which is in the pipeline, this will be an SMS-based product. And then in Armenia, we're going to do cell broadcast as well. So there's some of the things in the pipeline. Next slide. Just a little bit more on our impact. So far we've generated about 6.1 million interactions and via 1.7 million beneficiaries. In some of the world's most vulnerable populations. Next slide, I think that's it. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your experience and the pilots you've been working on. I think at this point, I'm tempted just to mention to people that from our stance, please be very careful about. I know data exchange is important. I know data interoperability is super helpful. We're going to talk about that on the panel today, but also just to say that data privacy, data protection, and consent on what type of data we're sharing and why is extremely important in many cases, as well as, obviously security and many different elements on when and how you decide to exchange your data, either with providers or through other agencies. Obviously, we're advocating for a seamless way that makes sense both to the events, either being a an onset or a post event, and agencies across each other. And it's amazing how we've seen these examples take shape in different countries. So I think with that, we're gonna probably open it up to the panelists for a quick Q&A. If I'm not mistaken. Would that be correct, Aisha and team?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. So if I can ask the panelists that are still with us, I appreciate there are some a connectivity problem with some, and others might not have the right equipment in place. Yeah, so thank you all. This has been an amazing exchange so far. I think the variety of the exchange, the breadth and the depth of the product solutions, use cases, government versus deployment versus agency versus service providers, I think, are super important, as well as the conceptual element, because any of those can apply at any point. If I may begin with a general question I've been asked to float around, and feel free, anybody, to jump in. I'm not going to name names. I will name names on specific questions later, if I may. Don't take it personally. But I think the first question was, a lot of people are trying to understand to what level and degree, if we were to enable interoperability between sort of early warning systems and other scenarios or players, how does that sort of practically play into practice? And maybe to narrow this question a bit further, maybe I would ask participants to say from their experience, so meaning for someone like Gabriela that has implemented PRISM, or someone like David that has implemented an open EWS or an open SPP perspective, where and how do you see which agencies were important for your specific implementation, which government agencies and access to data is important? And maybe from a government stance, I think maybe Atanas can come in and share with us his experience in Rwanda. And maybe that will get a sort of a cohesive view of all the stakeholders and what data sets we need at some point. So with this, I'm going to stop talking for a second, open it up to anyone on the panel that would like to jump in and give their own perspective. So yeah, no names, no sequence. This is like an open floor now. Thank you.
Well, I may try to answer your question, Joe, on our experience in Mozambique. Maybe just a bit of contextual information. When we're setting up anticipatory action trigger systems in Mozambique specifically, is a very governmental-led process, which means that the government and other partners, they are heavily involved in the designing process of an anticipatory action trigger system, which also means that the data that is used is coming from local sources. So for instance, to be even more specific on the floods, the forecast is validating against river discharge data that is coming from the Mozambican Water Authority. The thresholds that is used, it's the thresholds that it's alerting that is alerting for each specific river stations. These are official thresholds, which yields to official alerts. So this is also important. And the trigger point in which the probability issues an alert is defined by the government. So, and this also requires understanding the level of reliability that they want to see coming with the forecast. So having the government looped in and involved in all steps of the process allow us to, once the trigger does a job of alerting, that proper activities are followed because there is already trust built into the system. So that's more or less our experience in Mozambique, which is very particular because the government is also heavily involved in the process.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Would anyone else like to jump in for a different perspective?
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Let me also try to talk about the needed data sets, as you said. For example, we need like weather, flood forecasts, observation data. This is very key. For example, we need to know the level of the river levels, for example, but also the discharge, as my colleague was saying. Yeah, we also need to know also, for example, the slope, land slope, because Rwanda is a hilly country. Maybe it is different to Mozambique or other country which might be flat. Rwanda is hilly, so this looking at the morphology of the country. This could also be the root cause of the most landslide, that or even the flood, because the water is coming upstream to downstream, and you need to look at those data, especially the level of the rivers, but also the slope, because you need to make sure that this region can be most. That's why even we have those hotspots. That's why we have those hotspots, to make sure that we give much attention to this region instead of others. So we are now actually looking at stakeholders like Meteo Rwanda, which is giving us the weather forecast and the observation data, especially rainfall data, all those important data like wind and other weather conditions data. But also we need, for example, Rwanda Space Agency to give us information on the slope of the land. If there is no rocks, all those information can come from Rwanda Space Agency or Rwanda Mining Board. We need, stakeholders like Rwanda Water Board to get access to water level, especially the river levels, and other information like water discharge. So we actually look at multiple data sets, and to have a working early warning system, you have to have a common understanding on the thresholds for different various hazards. But also we need to define together the SOP for the hazards. This allows us to go to have a common understanding, even the common triggers. We agree on validate the triggers. This is very important. But also we need to have basic geospatial linkage. The affected areas and the population that are at risk, but also the integrated communication. We cannot leave behind the MNOs, mobile network operators, because they are the one that we use to disseminate, warnings to the population at risk. Thank you very much. Maybe I can, I can end here. Thank you so much.
Brilliant, Athanas. If I may keep you on for one follow-up question, but just to say, it's super important to see that Meteo, water, space, social protection, infrastructure, mining was sort of important for the overall architecture of the system, not the technology system, but the overall sort of disaster system. Maybe just to ask you, obviously, when we talk about data exchange, early warning systems, or data dissemination, that goes one way to someone else. There might be different protocols, different home and host, and different classifications of how this message is disseminated based on a certain sort of condition. I think some people might benefit from an understanding of, have you engaged sort of communities in any exchange of information that takes place, between government agencies and sort of the public? And did you have any experience of that? And were there any learnings that you think were important on, sending one-way messaging and receiving anything from the community, if that at all possible, or that comes probably through community leaders, or any sort of interaction between the community, one way, two way, or for any reason, I think would be helpful for some people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question, Joe. Yeah, we have we don't do the one-way communication. We have also a contact center, a data center. Yeah, because sometimes people question about the message we provide, and then they get back to us through that contact center, the call center that we own. We are now in the process even to build a public safety emergency management information system, which is going to have a broader call center. And then we expect the feedback from the local populations, asking if this is real. For example, if this hazard is going to happen or not, because people tend to also, because in the message that we provide, we sometimes tell them to relocate temporarily, to relocate temporarily. So then now that's why they keep asking to confirm if the information is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Athanas, for this. This is super helpful in understanding context and different scenarios. I think, if I may, there are a few questions that we had lined up for different people. But if I may jump into Nina, are you with us, Nina from Google?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you. Finally, at least voice works. Nina, thanks so much for being here and for being generous with your time, and we appreciate you had some connectivity issues. If I may turn it to you for a second and say, from your experience, have you learned anything in deploying your models, be it either riverine or different sort of flood context in countries? And sort of, can you give us a little bit of insight into what cases were interesting for you and where the product could go next? Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the wonderful question. It's highly relevant to this forum. To this group, I intended to present today also about Google's Flood Forecast. Unfortunately, my connectivity is not on our side, so I wasn't able to connect earlier. Now I'm happy to contribute to the discussion as voiceover, and I hope to be able to also share some of the resources via email afterwards. And I appreciate that our wonderful colleagues from Rwanda were able to share more about the work that they're doing and also how they're using Google's Flood Forecast on a national level. This is a beautiful segue to share some of the best practices. So just as a top line view, what we as Google are doing, we have a research arm, it's called Google Research, and we developed a model that forecasts riverine floods up to 7 days in advance. And now we recently also launched our model that forecasts flash floods in urban areas up to 24 hours in advance. And what makes these models special is that they are AI driven and they're global models. So different to traditional flood forecasting methodologies, what we're doing is we developed a model that is capable of learning from all the publicly available data that is relevant to flooding across the world, and then create predictions also in data scarce areas. And it's not only that we're able to create prediction in new and data scarce areas, which is particularly relevant to the global south, where there might be often some infrastructure gaps or capacity gaps. But what we're also seeing is that often these predictions are also outperforming the current state of the art of other global models, for example, GLOFASS. So the predictions are at an overall higher quality and also just on a much, much larger scale, geographic scale. What we also see is if you benchmark this to local data, there's often local data has a stronger performance depending on the methodology and the quality of these predictions. So something that is incredibly important as you implement this is that there's always this link to the local context with the local hydromet agency together, but we're hoping to achieve a point where there's a strong national ownership of a hydromet agency and the local authorities to really implement these forecasts on a national level in connection with the local data and in conjunction with the local system. I realize that we're at time. Joy, I'm sorry for taking so much time for my small Q&A. Over to you.
Wonderful, Nina. I love the insight, because particularly on your last point is that people probably don't realize that at some point, if you as a vendor are able to open source that model to train it with local data, I think this would somehow multiply the outcome that can come in. And we're very grateful that you're thinking of those as well as you sort of progressing your product. And this is one of the reasons why, we bring your model to some countries. I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. I apologize for going over time. I'm very grateful to everyone. I'm sorry, David and Edwin, I haven't been able to pick on you yet with a specific question because I've been asked to wrap this up very quickly. I think I'm gonna hand this over to DCI and GIZ to sort of bring us to a close and close us with some key messages before we part. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time and contribution. This was a tremendously insightful discussion.
Thank you, Joe, for the excellent moderation and bringing key highlights as and when needed. So without taking further time of the audience and the speakers, I'll wrap up in next 30 seconds. So first of all, I want to thank the audience, the speakers, and the organizers for such a successful and wonderful workshop that we have had on this day. I want to say that we will be launching the Early Warning System Interface Standards Committee on 14th April. So if you know someone who could contribute and interested, please reach out to us. So we can probably go to the next couple of slides, skip them, and then, yeah, so we are, as we said, we are offering direct implementation support to countries. If you know somebody needs support on implementation of standards, do reach out to us. Moving on. Look at this standards product on how to implement interoperability and the AI hub I spoke of during the intro. If you need any support on implementing AI, reach out to us, learn from all our contributions, as well as participate in all the events of DCI, whether it's events, standards development, or implementation of standards or digital protection. And you can reach out to us on our website or email to us or reach out on LinkedIn, Gitbook, GitHub. We are there to help promote digital transformation in social protection systems. Thank you all once again for your time and interest in this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.